Live from the campus of Penn State University, this is PSN News. It's Wednesday, October 2nd. We have all you need to know about the sentencing of former fraternity leaders in the Timothy Piazza case, along with potential broadband expansions coming to Center County.
We also have the latest information on the dock workers' strike, along with entertainment, sports, and an interview. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Audrey Keller.
And I'm Hines. Two former leaders of a Penn State fraternity chapter have been sentenced to jail for the hazing event that led to the death of pledge Timothy Piazza in 2017. Former Beta Theta Pi Alpha Upsilon chapter President Brendan Young and former pledge master Daniel Casey were sentenced on Tuesday to serve 2 to 4 months in the Center County Correctional Facility, starting on October 7th. The jail time will be followed by a subsequent 3 years of probation and 10 days of community service. Young and Casey will be the first to serve jail sentences in the case.
Penn State saw a slight decline in the U.S. News' 2025 Best Colleges ranking. Penn State ranked as 30 out of 225 national public universities and 63 out of 436 national universities. 12 Penn State undergraduate programs ranked in the top 25. Colleges could be considered if they offered a broad range of undergraduate majors, master's, and doctoral programs. The universities are ranked through a weighted calculation of 17 factors, including graduation rates and borrower debt and peer assessment.
The State College Rotary Club celebrates 100 years of service this October. The club was founded in 1924 with the focuses of encouraging community connections that are based on friendship and service. State College Rotary provides local nonprofits with $2,000 of district-funded grant money and an additional $2,000 to $5,000 from other donations. The club has evolved over the years, including the inclusion of women in 1987. The club also focuses on youth programs, global initiatives, and the relationships among the members. The organization will celebrate this milestone at Millbrook Marsh Nature Center on Tuesday, October 8th.
The Center County Board of Commissioners approved the issuing of a request for proposals from internet service providers to expand their services to include unserved areas within Center County. The Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program awarded Pennsylvania $1.16 billion for community broadband development. The submission deadline for a proposal is not until January 3rd to allow a proposer adequate time. After the break, Bronwell Liber will have the latest in sports.
Welcome back to PSN News. I'm Bronwell Liber with your sports update. Starting off on the road, Penn State men's soccer had their 18th all-time matchup versus the Maryland Terrapins. The Nittany Lions entered the match unranked. Meanwhile, Maryland held a spot at number 12 in the polls. The first half was quiet as both teams went 45 minutes scoreless. That quickly changed at the blow of the whistle, though, with Maryland quickly putting one in the back of the net just 11 minutes later. Shortly following, the Blue and White answered with a goal of their own, making the score 1-1, where it would remain for the rest of the match, forcing the top 15 ranked team into a draw. Penn State men's soccer returns home to Jeffrey Field this Friday, October 4th, as the Nittany Lions play host to the UCLA Bruins in Big Ten Conference action, as well as their annual Wear White game. With the seasons changing, so are the sports as the Nittany Lions transition from the grass to the ice. Women's hockey got started last week, splitting the series with number 13 Northeastern. This split awarded goalie Katie Desa the Atlantic Hockey America, also known as the AHA Goaltender of the Week award. She was lights out in Game 2, allowing 1 goal and making 17 saves on 18 shots. Penn State jumped Northeastern in the rankings to number 12. Sophia Koch is live in the studio now with more details from the game. Sophia?
Thanks, Bronwyn. On Thursday, I had the chance to attend the Penn State women's ice hockey game against Northeastern. This was their home season opener at the Pagula Ice Arena for a 2-game series. The Nittany Lions faced off against the Huskies. Let's take a look. Penn State women's ice hockey faced off on September 26 against Northeastern. The first game of the series was a back-and-forth game. Penn State started off with the first goal, but then Northeastern came back and scored 3 more points, beating Penn State in the first game of the 2-game series.
I'm Sophia Koch here with Penn State Network News. The Penn State Nittany Lions took on the Northeastern Huskies in the dominating 2-series game, starting off with Northeastern in the lead, although Penn State was able to take it back, securing them the number 12 ranking and pushing Northeastern down to number 13.
The first game of the series was fierce, with many penalties for both teams for illegal cross-checking. Here's what Coach Jeff Campersall had to say about the penalties in disciplining his players.
Salvage penalties to put us down 5-3. So going back to we want our kids to be tough. We want them to be on the scoreboard, not beat them up in the parking lot.
Penn State took back the second game of the series, scoring 2 goals in the 2-1 game. Penn State's goalie only let in 1 of 17 shots by Northeastern in the net, giving her the title of the NHA Goaltender of the Week, allowing Penn State to secure their spot in the NCAA rankings. I'm Sophia Koch for Penn State Network News. Next, the Penn State Nittany Lions will head to Connecticut to take on the Yukon Huskies on October 4th and October 5th. Back to you, Bronwyn.
Thanks, Sophia. The sports world is mourning this week as NBA Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo and MLB hits leader Pete Rose both passed earlier this week, just hours apart. Mutombo died at the age of 58 from brain cancer, leaving a legacy larger than his 7'2" stature for his philanthropic work done with the Special Olympics. Rose passed from a cardiovascular disease at the age of 83 after having spent most his later years in controversy, most famously for betting on his own team, the Cincinnati Reds, while he was the team manager. To this day, he still holds the title as the MLB's hit leader. That's all for your sports update. After the break, Claire Huss has the latest in the world of entertainment. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to PSN News. I'm Claire Huss with your entertainment update. As October begins, fall events are in full swing here in State College. On October 12th, Downtown State College is hosting the 23rd Annual Fall Festival from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Festival events like pumpkin decorating, photo stations, and pony rides will take place on the 200 block of Allen Street. The Youth Service Bureau, local nonprofits, and Martin's Garden Center plan to host events catered towards kids and families, but there will be fun for people of all ages. Additionally, the festival will feature food from local vendors throughout the day. Downtown State College plans to announce additional events in the near future. Chances are most Penn State students were forced to read Arthur Miller's The Crucible at some point before coming to college. From October 8th through 19th, Penn State Center Stage will perform John Proctor is the Villain by Kimberly Bellflower at the Pavilion Theater. The play analyzes the Crucible through the comedic lens of contemporary American high schoolers. Members of the cast include Penn State theater students and is directed by Steve H. Broadnaw III. Students can purchase tickets online for discounted rates. Last week, Hoda Kotb announced she will be stepping down from her role as host of The Today Show. After 26 years with NBC and 6 years spent anchoring, she decided on her 60th birthday that it was time to step down. Kotb is known nationally by viewers for her infectious smile and chemistry with every guest on the show. In 2008, Kotb transparently shared her struggle with breast cancer as well as infertility, breaking down stigmas and showing her true resilience. Kotb says devoting more time to wellness and her family are major motivating factors in her decision. She plans to remain a contributor to NBC, and she will be missed dearly by her co-hosts after her departure in early 2025. That's all for your entertainment update. Coming up next, interview anchor Maya Valerio will be speaking with Netta Tului-Samnani, a Penn State professor and Emmy Award-winning writer. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to PSN News. I'm Maya Valerio, and joining me tonight is Netta Tului-Samnani, a Penn State professor and Emmy Award-winning writer. Thank you so much for coming tonight, Netta.
Thanks, Maya.
So, you've worn many different journalistic hats over the course of your career, from being a producer to writing your own memoir to now being a professor here at Penn State. Can you tell me about what inspired you to pursue the journalism field initially?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always wanted to tell stories, and I like to ask questions. I like people, but I sort of couldn't figure out another way to do everything I wanted to do. And as a journalist, you can always get into almost anywhere. And so that was always fun. They sort of seemed like superheroes to me when I was in college, so I was always too nervous to do it when I was in college. But then I was close to 30, and I was like, it's now or never.
Awesome. So you completed your undergraduate studies at the University of Maryland and then went on to get your master's in both science and fine arts afterwards. Do you remember what your first job was post-grad? And do you recall ever having a moment where you sat back and thought, all of my hard work has paid off?
So I got my master's in, it's a master's of science, but it's in policy. So it's gender and social policy. And nonfiction was the other one. So it was interesting because each one of my my graduate career or my graduate school career really impacted my actual career. And I think often you hear that graduate school isn't really worth that much, but in my case, it really was. Each one of them was a real stepping stone for me. And then did I ever think that I've like, oh, I finally, all my hard work has paid off? Well, my first major job out of school that sort of set me on my path was right out of undergrad. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was bartending, and my family's from Iran. So I decided to go back to Iran, and I worked there for a few months, and there was a horrific earthquake. And just because of where I was at the time, I was able to go and work at the earthquake site. And because of my English and like whatever, some familiarity, I worked really closely with the UN and international aid groups. And so I sort of had this 360 view of a really horrific disaster. And I kept collecting all these stories and I was writing reports and stuff, but nobody else had the access I did. And I think that was the first time at like 22, 23 that I was like, oh, if I was a journalist and I was writing or if I was shooting or something like that, this would be just a beautiful story that I wasn't seeing covered. So that was the first time that I was like, oh, I would like to do something like this. But it took me years before I got there. And then, you know, no, I'm a journalist. I'm never satisfied, nor do I ever want to be. So after my second graduate degree, I sat down in one of our classes and we had to write down everything we ever wanted to write. And then some years went by and I went back and I realized that I could start crossing things off the list. And it was a really extraordinary moment. So I don't know, that's like a big recommendation. Like shoot for the moon. I've been able to do almost everything I've sort of set my mind to. And I don't think it's because I'm anything special. It's just because I'm just so excited and hungry and like to do it. Yeah.
That's amazing. So this is your first year as a Penn State professor. What courses are you teaching this semester?
Thank you for asking, Maya. I am teaching TV reporting and podcasting.
Awesome. So how are you liking it so far?
Teaching?
Yes.
Or Penn State or both?
Everything.
Everything?
Yeah.
I love teaching. It's mostly because I really like my students. I always feel a little bit like I'm letting them down because that's just how I feel as a journalist. As a journalist, if you feel like you are building a beat, you really like, you start working your sources, or you like go to the library, you read up, you go and hang out at the courthouse and get to know all the lawyers, you know, whatever. I covered politics for a long time. You get to know everyone on staff who runs the floor. And I feel like I am sort of at the beginning of building my beat as a professor. But I don't think I'm quite there yet. So it's still at that challenging stage, but I love it so far.
That's nice. So you've done a lot of great work with the company Vice as a senior writer and a producer. How did you initially get involved with the company?
It was, they needed a writer, and Vice News Tonight. The person who started it really wanted writing to be the key, storytelling really to be the key. So they hired a bunch of print reporters, which is sort of unheard of. Actually, a lot of people from Vice came from like all sorts of other places. And I think that diversity of background, of, you know, knowledge in general really served us both around the stories we were trying to get, but also how we were going to tell the stories. Also, if you have a bunch of people who are like, I don't understand why we can't animate this, you know, the story of Fallujah, why can't we animate this for our nightly newscast? And you have a talented graphics department that's like, actually, yes, I would love to do a claymation about religion, or let's talk about ending the penny by doing an animation about the penny. If you have a bunch of people that say, why can't we do it? You end up doing really cool stuff. And that, while I was there, the thing about Vice was it kept regenerating. It kept trying to decide who it was. And I think that's like a strength in some ways. And there was a group of us, there was a group of reporters and journalists and producers and artists and who were just really committed to the craft of doing good news, because it's a craft.
So building off of that, you've mentioned before that Vice approaches news with a more creative lens compared to a lot of other newsrooms. What lens do you approach stories with to give your audience new and fresh takes?
You know, I think it depends on the story. I personally tend to gravitate towards character-driven story. I think you need great character, you need a strong story, and then it's up to me to get to figure out how the audience is going to connect. So for me, it's all about the context of it. How do you put everything in a broader context? Because we are all connected. And that's really the thesis that I approach all of my stories with, which is an empathetic lens. It's an informed lens. It's a lens of curiosity and genuine affection for most of the people that I cover. But I also demand people to be held accountable, and I try to hold myself accountable as well.
That's great to hear. Well, Netta, thank you so much for coming in tonight and telling us more about your incredible experiences in journalism. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, stick around, because coming up next, Eva and Audrey will have the latest news from across the nation.
California Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed a bill that would have set the first safety measures for artificial intelligence in the country. The bill would have required companies to test their AI models and publicly disclose their safety protocols to prevent the models from being manipulated. This veto marks a setback for efforts to regulate the rapidly evolving AI industry. Newsom has since announced a partnership with industry experts to develop alternative guidelines for AI safety.
Dock workers at 36 ports from Maine to Texas went on strike yesterday at midnight after their contract expired with the ports. Nearly 45,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association are protesting over wages and automation in the industry. The strike marks the first by the union since 1977. This strike could mean an increase in inflation and could cause a shortage of goods if it continues for more than a few weeks.
NASA's new SpaceX Dragon capsule will bring 2 astronauts stuck at the International Space Station home next year. The capsule left 2 empty seats for Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, while also bringing up 2 new astronauts. NASA switched their ride to SpaceX after safety concerns of their Boeing Starliner capsule experiencing problems during the crew test flight. The new SpaceX capsule will stay at the ISS until February, which means Wilmore and Williams will be in space for over 8 months. NASA is checking the Boeing capsule to figure out what went wrong and see if it is safe for future flights.
Earth has just pulled an asteroid the size of a school bus into its orbit. For about the next 2 months, this mini-moon will continue to be caught by Earth's gravity, and with a research-grade telescope, one might be able to see it. First spotted by astronomers at the Complutense University of Madrid, it is expected to break away from Earth on November 25th. That concludes our show tonight at PSN News.
Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Facebook at PSN News, on Instagram at Penn State Network News, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/PSN News.
Have a good night and stay safe, Penn State.